Welcome to Navigating the Workplace, where we start by talking about work situations and we end up talking about people interactions and relationships. I'm Deb,
And I'm Vince.
and we look forward to just sharing some ideas with you today for the next half hour or so about coaching. Uh, we are both professional coaches, and we wanted to share with you in terms of the benefits of coaching and some of the things we've discovered along the way as coaches that are really helpful in terms of using a coach approach. So, where do we start, Vincent?
Well, I think first about what is coaching?
Do you want me to go first and then we can both give our ideas?
Sure.
Okay. Um, First of all, I'll say what coaching isn't. I think people have a conception that coaching is some form of counseling. And if I had to do the best differentiation between the two concepts, coaching to me is creating an environment or what I like to call a container for the coach and the client to sit together and talk, where the coach helps create the environment where the client finds their own solutions to issues or problems. Um, Not a lot of advice giving, uh, mainly because we truly believe the basic philosophical belief I have as a coach is that every single person has the answer inside of them. I just have to provide an environment where they can discover that. Um, so that's what I would say, and we are of service to people in terms of working through anything for myself in a business environment that's not helping them to be successful.
And I'd agree with you too. It's with coaching, it is not counseling. There's a big difference between counseling and coaching. I have had feedback that my coaching feels therapeutic, but that's the power of feeling heard and listened to. Um, One thing about counseling is when there's a problem, often the questions asked can be, why is it that way? When did it start? Coaching's not anything like that. I have a solutions focused coaching background, which means instead of talking about why the problem's wrong, let's talk about what is the door you want to create and what door in future you want to go through, and let's just talk about that.
It's just in the moment, and I think you really said that succinctly, Vincent. It's in the moment. Like, we're not worried about the past. The only future we're worried about is the one that you would like to create, and we're not even worried about that because we absolutely believe that can be created. And it is just for you and your coach to discover how that happens. So,
And I'm curious, Deb, what possibilities have you seen with coaching?
wow, where do we start? That's a big question. My experience with coaching has come in a really professional environment, where I was contracting with both the client themselves, who was seeking to build different behaviors in the workplace, and a lot of the times I also contracted with the person they reported to. And this is not to be confused with performance management. This is really a sincere intent on part of the organization to truly want to help this person to continue to meet their potential and develop skills that they would need as they grew in their career. And it was usually a three-way conversation in the beginning. And a lot of times it had to do with learning how to work successfully through other people rather than doing it yourself. So, we would call that delegation in sort of the military model. But in reality, in workplaces, it's not just about handing tasks over, it's about building strong relationships with people. And the most important relationship you need to build, first of all, to be a good leader, is the one you have with yourself.
Mhm.
So, when you have a strong relationship and a strong sense or a strong level of self-awareness, you have a much better idea of how you're coming in to a team to build a relationship. So it was mostly about building self-awareness, and that could be done through questioning. It could be done through 360 feedback, but it was about building awareness about how this person was in the workplace and where could they strengthen some of their behaviors to create really strong relationships and really strong teams.
And
So
for
what's your
me,
experience, Vincent?
yeah, my experience has been it's really transformed the relationships that I have had. So I grew up in a environment and where the manager tells people what to do, and so that's where I met you, Deb. And for those of you who don't know, Deb has a significant, very experienced in organizational development as a consultant, and she brought coaching into my organization. And I changed from being an order taker where I'm the HR person and consultant and the manager gives me something to do, I do it, to changing the way I ask questions and building the leadership capability when people ask me things. And I transferred that through work and my personal relationships. And I saw the change that happened. And one of the ultimate things of what's possible with coaching is the more I learned about coaching, the more I learned about empathy and how to develop that. And um, I think I went from a cold, distant person when I was very young, where we don't bring emotions at work, to being able to understand emotions, people's emotions, and how to handle that. And also, but first coming with the understanding of feeling how they feel when they say things. And I think that's one of the most powerful things that we can learn as coaches. And that's one of the most powerful things that can be a benefit from being coached, is because the power of feeling heard and deeply heard and listened to is very indistinguishable from feeling loved. I think David A is the person that said that. I can't remember the last name. Um, and so for me, it's really changed my life. And that's, when you ask me how I identify, I identify as a coach. Like, I'm first and foremost a coach.
Yeah, I ditto. That's all I can say to that. That's exactly, I think, is the core of a strong relationship and contract with a client, is that they will feel seen, they will feel heard, they will feel safe, and they will then be able to have an environment where they could fully explore how they want to be in the workplace. Because it's not about doing, it's about being when you're a leader, and how people respond to you and how you respond to them. And if it's just made about transactional doing, it's limited on what kind of success you can have, because it really is about what you leave people with after you have, from a feeling perspective, after you've had a conversation with them. And they're either going to leave feeling, wow, I can do this, or they're going to leave feeling, I'm not sure this person trusts me.
Hmm. There's a quote from Christian Simpson, who is the head coach at John Maxwell team. And he says, you cannot lead if you cannot coach. And the reason for that is because if we continue as leaders to just tell and direct, well, that's only one tool that we have. And if we only use a hammer all the time, it doesn't do anything for the person. And I think you were the one that taught me, Deb, that I think it was Brown University or Stanford University, where they hooked people up to MRI machines and they told people what to do, and it did nothing for their brain. But when they hooked up and asked powerful coaching questions, it lit up their minds like shining stars in the night. And so there's a powerful thing that happens when asked a question in a well-intentioned way that can open up possibilities and also change the way we operate and also create more powerful learning teams in a safe environment. And that's what a high performance team is.
So I'm going to give a practical example. We've talked a lot about what it should feel like, and sort of the concepts of, what you can actually accomplish. But let me give you one of the most powerful things I used to do with people is that they would come in and basically say, I just cannot work with this person. Like, no matter what I say, I cannot work with this person. So I just basically had them start to explore what the internal self-talk was, their internal self-talk was, as they were interacting with this person. And I'll give you just a quick little exercise to do. If you're coming into a conversation with someone you know that you may not be communicating well with, first of all, shut up and listen. Just listen. And as you're listening, take a piece of paper, put a line down the middle, Put what you're saying out of your mouth on the left-hand side of that line, and put what your mind is saying inside on the right-hand side of that line. It's called the split page experiment here. And what you're going to find is as you're talking, you have a whole internal chatter of what's going on and what you believe about this conversation, what you believe about the person. And that right-hand side of the page is where change can happen. Because it's what you're holding in belief that is creating the behavior that's either going to work for you or it's going to work against you. And people would be blown away, and they would just tell the person, I'm taking notes, as we're talking. That's all I'm doing. And what was really interesting is I said, and you can read it. I said, then put it away for a couple of days or bring it to the next coaching session and read it again. Don't read it every single day. I said, just let that permeate for a while. And they would come back and they said they were blown away, but by the stuff that was, a lot of it was negative about what the possibility of what could happen with this person or who they were or whatever. And they could write anything they wanted. It wasn't going to be shared with anybody else except the coach, and I wasn't taking it anywhere. And they realized that they had spent a significant amount of time in their head rather than actually listening to the other person. So as they did this more and more, and they were acutely aware that this was going on, and I got them to continue writing it, the writing on the right-hand page became less and less, and the dialogue became more and more, because they realized that dialogue inside their head was not helping them truly understand how they could work with this person. So when you let it be there and you realize you have it, then you can consciously manage how much of that is going to get in your way as you're having a conversation. So that was just one little thing that we used to do that was pretty mind-blowing for people in terms of being aware of their internal self-talk. Do you have something you particularly did, Vincent, that was really helpful in terms of when you coached?
I think for me, there were a number of things that helped me understand just how much thoughts and stereotypes and biases I had, and the need to let go of all of that so that I can listen deeply and fully. One of those tools with the ladder inference, and just understanding that we go through, when we see things from a camera perspective, we actually add our thoughts, biases, assumptions, all of that, and make a decision in our mind, and it happens just quickly. And so what we need to do is come down from that. And we can link the ladder of inference in a different video. And the more thoughts and feelings and assumptions, biases I became aware of and heard, the more I was able to let that go, to set my intention to fully hear this person to the highest level of listening, which is the 5 levels of listening from Stephen Covey, and the 5th level is empathic listening, which means listening with empathy. The short version of what that means is hearing what the person is saying, but also feel how they're saying as they're saying it. And as a coach, we're trained to feel that and then come back to a neutral, objective position, because that's where we ask the best possible question for them. We need to understand how they feel and then come back to neutral. And so for me, those things really helped, and being intentional, and it's also really helped me become more present and know that I'm present and listening at which level in front of that person. Now, the question is, can you do that all day? And I haven't been able to do that all day, but when somebody needs me as a coach, that's when I'm able to shift into that position, and building that muscle memory, that ability, can be very helpful for leadership. And when we talk about leaders, it's like we don't talk about leaders in just formal positions. We look at self-leadership, ourselves as personal leaders as well, and that's what I mean by that.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, Vincent, when you were talking about, I call that concept about sort of emptying yourself of your own biases, emptying your vessel, emptying yourself. How did you build that acute awareness of what you might have been holding? Because it's very similar to the negative self-talk stuff.
Yeah. So first it was being aware, and you helped me become aware of all the things that were getting my way of actually listening. And I think I was one of those people that, oh, okay, this is how you listen. And I think most of us in management school teaching about active listening, but there's a fifth and deeper level, which is empathic listening. And so I thought I was listening, but really I was actually either pretend listening or active listening. So once I became aware of that, I also went through the my master's of leadership, and they got us to go through a lot of stressful situations, complex situations, and journal them. And they also, in journaling, helped us, talked about what were our thoughts, what went on for us, and really uncovered our belief system and why do we think that, and is that something we want to continue doing? And if not, what do we want to do next? And I think there was also another tool, Bush's Experience Cube, which you go observation. What are your thoughts about what you saw? What are your feelings? And then what do you want from what you saw? So going through those reflection cycles really helped. And I think being continuously learning through these experiences and, you know, going through each coaching session, the more experience you get, the more you reflect on it and just developing those skills. Yeah. And so that's me in the present, but I want to go back to your point too about setting the container, because as a coach, yes, that skill is very important. First and foremost, in any coaching session, there should be the intention set for the container of that person to feel safe and hold that person in that space and be their thought partner in unlocking their potential and possibilities if they want to.
Mhm. Yeah, it's an invitation. I agree with you. When you set the container, you invite them to join you there. Whether they'll fully join you there, I think depends on the person themselves and in terms of how far they're willing to go in their own self-awareness. I think it also has to do with, the amount of compassion and empathy and peace we bring into that environment, safety, and that allows them to do that. And sometimes that's just patience. You can start off with clients who are incredibly stressed in their jobs, and there's not too many safe spaces in workplaces. So coaches should be the one place that is entirely and totally safe for someone to explore who they are. That's really what you're helping them do. You're starting to help them explore who they are and who they might like to be in addition to who they already are. So it's always a good start, and I think you're probably getting from our conversation so far, is that it's always about self-awareness. All the solutions start with you. And I know people don't want to hear that. A lot of people would rather say, if that person would just change, my life would be so much better. Well, the reality is you're going to be waiting a long time because the only person you have control over is yourself. And I think that's why coaching has become so popular, because coaches are starting to sort of embed that idea of self-awareness as a key success tool. And it's why they have been having success, and it's why people have been successful in working with coaches. Because when you work in the dark about yourself, you never know what kind of reaction you're going to get. And when you're more aware of that, you have much more ability to manage the type of reactions you're going to get. Not completely, but most of the time. Yeah. So where do we want to go from here, Vincent?
I think I want to talk about just one more benefit of coaching. And from what I've seen from being in coach position, one of the benefits can be that through coaching, whether it's the first session or numerous sessions, at some point there is a light bulb that goes on, an epiphany they have, that they are where they're at in their life based on hundreds of micro decisions that they've made. And when they experience that, they can feel more empowered to say, I'm responsible for this. I know that this is why, and I can just change my life by making different decisions. And so I think I just wanted to cover that as one of the highlights of benefits of coaching. And I think one of the questions next is, once someone understands the power of coaching or cares about coaching and wants to try it and experience it, how do you find a good coach? What are the qualities of a good coach? Yeah.
Like, what is I think there's two levels. It's probably their standards and their intention toward you in the coaching relationship. And that is the most personal aspect of coaching. Are they the right coach for you in terms of how you sit in that relationship with them? Are they meeting needs in terms of, because this can be an incredibly close, in some ways, intimate relationship, because somebody is sitting there with you and holding space for you to explore things about yourself. So you have to find a person, just from a personality perspective, an approach, how they come into the conversations, that you're going to feel extremely comfortable with to begin with. And then there can be a whole set of techniques, and Vincent and I have years of reading and studying and everything about all the different coaching processes we can use, or information that we know about coaching that help to create that environment also, and help the person realize where they might be able to go, or giving them little exercises like I just described. But I think that's the start. It's very much a relational type of assessment. It's not, how many degrees do they have, which is nice. It's always good to have knowledge. But do I fit with this person, and do they get me? And can we have an easy conversation? That would be where I would start if I was advising somebody. Mm-hmm. What would you add, Vincent?
I think there are certain buyer bewares when selecting a coach. And I think I've seen, people who have gone through a 2-day coaching course and think, I'm now a life coach. And I think that's where it kind of tarnishes the integrity of coaching as a credible profession. Mm-hmm. Because in 2 days, how can you possibly know the thoughts and assumptions and beliefs that you've had? How it's more than that. And even with coaching, it's a 165-hour coaching course. There's a lot to be in a credible coaching, and not saying that you need that 160 hours as a credible thing, but you do need that self-work. And I've seen kind of those coaches that say, I'm a coach, but actually apply their biases in their questions. And that can kind of change the dynamics and destroy the trust from a coaching to coachee relationship. And some people will come and they'll say, I've been coached before, it's not for me. But it was very much, tell me your problems and I'm going to give you the answer. I'll ask you a few open-ended questions, but then I'm just going to tell you the answer anyways. And that's what coaching is.
Well, you and I both I have taken training in coaching, but it was, like years and years and years of doing it and teaching it to other people. And in the beginning, we all have to, if we're going to be really good at this and we're truly going to be of service to people and we don't do any damage, we have to do a lot of soul searching within ourselves to figure out, how am I going to be of best service to someone? We have to heighten our own level of self-awareness. And we have to hold ourselves to a different standard about that. And I think what Vincent is mentioning here in terms of those, how many hours they spend in reflective practice, because I was also in a reflective practice master's, where we had to write all our innermost ideas, thoughts, belief systems, and every exercise that we were doing, we had a reflective practice journal. And over the 2.5, 3 years of the master's degree that I took, I started to be much more aware of who I was as a human being. And that stood me well in terms of the coaching piece of it. So I agree with you, Vincent. I mean, how you come in as a coach is going to make all the difference in terms of, again, that relational thing about how people will feel after they leave an interaction with you. And have you moved them in a positive direction?
And what I also have seen too is that the experienced coaches, the good to greater coaches, it is who they are as a coach. You can tell by their presence that this is who they are, versus a person who is just asking questions to get a person to a certain answer. And that's not what coaching is. So, and there might be a little bit of that as we learn about coaching, but that person should be, disclaimer, that I'm learning coaching. Do you want to try this with me?
It's your intention. And I can remember one of the key questions we would ask. We had a very succinct sort of internal coaching process where we were teaching people how to use coaching, leaders how to use coaching internally. And we would ask the question, as you're coming into an interaction with someone and you're wanting to use a coach approach in it, what's your intention toward this person? And good coaches need to ask themselves that every time they come into a coaching interaction with somebody. Because if we're distracted by other things in our lives, if we can't give full attention, we are not going to have a successful end result as a coach, and they would not have had a good, successful end result with using a coach approach in a leadership situation. So it's all about being. It's not about doing. It's how you are when you come into the interaction. And have you done the necessary internal work to come in where people really know what your clear intention is toward them? And for me, that is always holding my client's best interests at heart. Not trying to overshadow anything they're trying to work on, and being honest with them of what we're observing and how we're experiencing them. But my intention is to always hold a space where they can explore further and not feel judged, not feel exposed, but for them to just be human. And I'm human many times with them. So, yeah, it's an interesting experience to go through it, because I have found in years of doing this, I learn as much in a coaching session as I think the client does, because I'm learning about myself as I'm doing it. And it's been a really interesting experience. I think if you fully move yourself into the coach role, you will grow as much as your clients do.
I've seen the same as well.
Yeah. It's been the most rewarding thing I've done in my life, is to work as a coach.
I'm curious, Deb, how might a person's life change from being coach?
Oh my gosh. Huge question again, Vincent.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get it down to the most, and I know I've said this many times in this conversation we've had. When you have self-awareness, you have almost everything. It is when we go through life thinking we know who we are, and then getting reactions that we don't quite understand. And a lot of the times we think it's the other person misunderstanding us, but many times it's about us not being clear or sending mixed signals. And when you really know how you might react in certain situations, when you really know all the elements of who you are, it makes a huge difference, first of all, on how you can build trust, but also how you can course correct, because as somebody gives you a reaction, you have the ability to kind of go inside and going, what's going on with me right now? How do I change this to a place where I'm of service, especially if you're in a coaching role? And what do I need to do from my side to make this the best interaction it can possibly be? And again, you can only invite people to do that with you. But the one part that you can truly handle is your side. The other side, you never know for sure what's going to happen. But you can handle your side in terms of what internal reaction you might be having. And it's like what you said earlier, Vincent. All this stuff we bring into things will create reactions that we might not be aware of, because we're not aware of what we're holding in terms of belief systems and attitudes. And we're never completely empty, but we can get pretty close to a level of awareness where it doesn't ever have to be about us. Would you agree with that?
I do agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This truly is a service function. We are truly in service to another human being. And I think the more skilled you get at that belief that you are of service to another human being, I know for me, the more successful I've been as a coach. Because ask yourself, how often have you ever been in the presence of somebody who truly is of service to you?
Mm-hmm. And who has your best interest at heart for that dedicated time and space that you are there for each other.
Yeah. I don't think you even get that from family members. Maybe some family members, but I think for the most part, we're running agendas all the time. So I don't know if this is convinced you to try coaching. I'm hoping it's given you some ideas about what to look for and what might be asked of you in a coaching relationship, that you will be asked to step up and be honest with yourself. And I don't know, is there anything else you'd want to say we've kind of covered here?
If they are interested in coaching, where would you suggest they go?
Oh my gosh.
Put you on the spot.
Oh, wow. I guess if I was still in the work world, I would know places. But I think it's more about do a little research for yourself. Don't just take our word for it. Do a little research, look at accreditation organizations, that do accreditation for coaching, see what they ask of their coaches. Just learn a little bit about what coaching really is as opposed to maybe other disciplines like counseling or therapy or, you know, um, and see if it's right for you and see if you're ready. If you're ready, are you ready? It is a journey.
And the one thing I'll say too is you don't absolutely need to have accreditation to be a true coach. I have
Mm.
known people who are coaches who demonstrate the skills and abilities that are much needed and the intention, the container, all of that presence, and it is who they are without having that certification. But it does take
I'm
a bit of getting to know as well. Yeah.
I'm actually one of them. When I first started coaching, it was the Wild West of coaching. It was in the mid 90s.
Yeah.
Coaching didn't have a lot of accreditation. I was in an organization that really, really wanted to start using coaching as one of their key leadership development tools. I had a background through my master's in terms of self reflection, awareness. It was the psychology and organizational development, organizational psychology. So I got all the underpinnings for coaching, and then I was so busy, I never did the certification. I just literally didn't have the time to do it. Sometimes I was up to 60 clients of coaching, and it was a lot of work in a very short period of time. But I learned in the school of hard knocks, and I became pretty grounded as who I was as a coach, and got a lot of clients as a result of that.
And Deb, you were really a pioneer in your fields and your organization, and you did significant work in it. And I'm testament to that because after you've done all that, you came to my organization and implemented an internal coaching program to which I was my work was changed. How I operated and how I built relationships and how I created relationships with my coaches or with my managers through coaching really changed the work that I did. And so um, that's why I say it doesn't need to have that certification. And I've seen people with certifications as coaches, but they still are not demonstrating the abilities at that level. So
Well, like anything else, you can have a advanced degrees, but does that mean you can actually functionally apply them in the real world?
yeah,
And they taking the training and understanding the theory, and having a master coach yourself, which I've had in my career, other people who've coached me to be a better coach, and I think that's where the rubber hits the road, because that's when you're really tested in terms of how successful can I really be here? And it's a challenge every single time you come into a conversation about grounding yourself, understanding what might be needed, holding that space. Like I said, it's one of the scariest things I did, and it's also one of the most fun things I've ever done. So, you know, it's the idea of opportunity.
and if they had more questions about coaching, where should they go?
Yeah, I'm going to pass that one back to you.
If you have more questions about coaching, please feel free to go to and write to us. We'd love to hear from you. Navigatingtheworkplace@gmail.com, and we'll put the email at the bottom in our comments or in
And
our
we
description. So,
hope this is going to be. I'm sorry, Vincent. I hope we're going to be able to do this as an ongoing type of podcast. Like I said, we're going to start talking about work situations, and we're going to end up just talking about human beings, because it doesn't matter what generation you're from. Human behavior does not change very much. And if you wonder if emotions, I'm going to leave you with this little thing in your mind. If you're wondering if there truly are emotions in the workplace, next time you get in the elevator at your workplace, just be quiet and listen to what the conversation is about. And I'll tell you, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be about a work procedure. It's going to be about somebody talking about somebody else at work, either positively or negatively. So we are surrounded with relational types of issues in workplaces, and I think it's time we brought emotions out of the closet, and we started to realize that they're not to be feared, that we can actually work through them, and then we start with ourselves first.
Thank you, Deb.
Anything you want to say to wrap
No,
up?
I think that's it. I think this place is a good place to end off.
So until next time, keep navigating that workplace, and we'll come up with some other topic. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, everyone.